Hi guys, I have not been live for a long time, but I wanted to do this video talking about the current CV going around and the upheaval that we are seeing in the world due to CV and other matters. If you watch my channel, you know the kind of language I'm using is filtered for a reason, because YT has been very stringent and focused on certain keywords that we use in our videos lately. Other YouTubers are saying this, so just being careful. I think you guys can get what my shorthand means in the title though. So we're seeing a lot of upheaval in the world right now. As I predicted back in January, I said that the Pluto return would mean a huge event is going to happen, bigger than the events that we were seeing back then with Iran and Soleimani, if I'm pronouncing it right, I'm sorry if I'm not doing that right, with the assassination of him. In addition to the Australian fires, I said something bigger was coming. And here you have it. So some of you might not know, because I've been trying to scale back on how much I share about my personal life now, that just to keep some things private to myself, and why I've also scaled back on the lives. But some of you may not know that I've been back and forth to New York all year. I'm currently not in New York. And when I originally left New York, I knew I would eventually go back permanently. But while I was leaving, I remember saying repeatedly to my aunt and repeatedly to my mother and a friend of mine, I feel like something really terrible is about to happen. Something feels heavy. I need to get out of here. And something kept repeating as get out in my brain. Well, now we have 25,000 and growing cases in New York of CV. So that could have been the reason why. And 50% of the cases in the United States are located in New York State. Now, I hope everybody is safe in all countries throughout the world, especially in New York, as we're seeing. If we're talking about the United States, that is concerning those numbers. I am in a location right now that I will not disclose, but I'm not in New York now. I plan to return eventually, but that's just a little insight into my intuition. Was already feeling this last year. As the year progressed and I was back and forth from different states, trying out different places, locations. I went up to Chicago for a bit, by the way. I kept getting that feeling that the big cities, for now at least, won't be good to be in. So I came back from Chicago, and then I made that video in January. If you guys want to look it up, let me just find the title, about change coming. And I referenced the assassination of Soleimani, as well as the fires in Australia, and that more big things were coming. This is due to the Pluto return. Now, the United States, at the birth of the country, when the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, we were Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto was in the sign of Capricorn. Okay? And it was the sun sign of Cancer and the moon sign of Virgo. When Pluto finally returns, it's actually not going to be in July. It's going to be when the sun is in the sign of Pisces on February 22nd, 2022. And the Pluto will be at its full potential in Capricorn, where it aligns perfectly. The reason why we're seeing all these upheavals is because in many ways, Pluto is the great pot stirrer. Pluto is the, part of my language, shit stirrer of the zodiac. Pluto takes a very long time to orbit. So when it finally returns, there is huge upheavals and like throwing out the old, putting in the new that we will see. Now, a lot of what is going on that we're experiencing has to do with this Pluto return. And as progressively, I just have to do something. As progressively, we get closer and closer to that time where Pluto is going to return in Capricorn in 2022, the more and more changes and upheavals we're going to be seeing. So it gets more and more and more and more accentuated. Okay, so a lot of this isn't only because of astrology, but astrology helps to predict and explain what's going on right now, is what I'm trying to say. So When we talk about, I've mentioned many times that the Emperor is the year that we're currently in, 2022, the Emperor card, right? And the Emperor symbolizes Taurus, Capricorn, Aries, right? That's the current energy we're in based on numerology. But as we go into 2021, the energy that we're going into is the Hierophant, the energy of changes, legal structures, governmental structures, and how those structures are going to, in many ways, crumble and have to be changed. And this coincides with what's going on in astrology. The numerology relates to the astrology and the tarot because the astrology is our Pluto return for the United States. Now, again, I know the United States is not the only country in the world. I realize that. Unlike what some people would say of Americans, that they think we're all self-centered and that's all we care about is America. That's not true. The United States is a big part of what the world is today, good and bad. And the reason for that is because it is an empire. It is much like how Great Britain was the big empire and now it's the US. But if you believe that the crown has more power, which I do, than they're really saying they are, they're still involved with it right now. You can go research that and look it up. I can't go too much into that on YouTube. Actually, it'll be a good idea for a Patreon video to talk about the Queen, the crown, and their involvement with the United States, or a tarot reading on that. So as we go more into and closer to this date in 2022, the changes are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so this is why we're seeing one of the biggest global concerns or emergencies, whether you believe it's severe or not severe, the CV that you can get. We have one of the biggest global emergencies that we've ever faced in most of our lifetimes. And the only one that could be even on par is the silent generation, which is my grandparents' age, like in their 80s and 90s, the things that they saw during World War II and the Great Depression. That's the only thing really comparable at this point. I'm not sick, I just have a dry throat. I'm fine. I barely leave the house. I have no life. So what we're experiencing is one of the biggest emergencies that we've seen in a long, long time, because Pluto is stirring the pot in the greatest empire in the world. And I don't mean great as in we're so great, greatest, like biggest empire right now in the world, is about to experience their return in under 2 years. So things are accelerating and speeding up and speeding up and speeding up. So the message still stands that I said in that video back in January about changes. These changes are only going to accelerate. If you need to prepare, prepare, because I don't see them slowing down. What I do see, though, is, and just to summarize, I did a detailed reading about this on Patreon. Now, detailed means the video might only be 8 minutes long, but I talk fast and I cram in as much as I can into that 8 minutes. I talk really fast. When I say detailed, I don't mean like 20-minute videos. I mean, I tell you more. There's a detailed video talking about this, about how things could get better on my Patreon. I do see things by the tarot and by astrology getting better for a time. But it's only like a temporary fix, and then things start to resurge again, is what I see. So whether or not they stay good or they're only good temporarily, which is what I intuitively feel, prepare yourselves. Because this Pluto return is going to keep accelerating until 2022. I don't think we're going to see much of a evening out of it until 2022. And particularly because we are approaching the year of change. We're not even in the year of change yet. We're going towards the year of change. This is supposed to be the year of stabilizing and what it means to build foundations, or to let those foundations that we did build crumble for the year of change. Because a lot of this is not even building actual tangible financial foundations. A lot of this is accepting that those foundations we built upon are built on things that are not sustainable and they're falling apart now. So it's about building a foundation within your spirit more than anything, I think, and taking the practical measures that you can take to build what foundation you have left with basic necessities, etc. Okay? So I do see towards the end of summer things lifting up a little bit, but I see them going back into an erratic direction again towards the fall, to be honest with you. I see that there's a lot of lies going on, fallacies, and people really need to think within themselves what their inner truth is and not listen to everything going on. Now, I'm not telling you not to stay informed. I'm not telling you not to listen to healthcare professionals. Of course, listen to healthcare professionals. It's not my business. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor to be telling you what you should do. Okay? There's going to be sorrow experienced by people in this world. Could be due to people passing, but we will come out of this as butterflies and a metamorphosis into a new life, into a new earth, into a new beginning. People are going to be wary and cautious of each other, on their guard towards others. Must be wary of your safety as well, because things will accelerate. People will get more desperate. Thieves. People feeling they're trapped in a prison. This could be literal because they feel like they're trapped within their homes as well. And we've seen a lot of ML going on. Now, if you can guess what I'm referring to when I say we've seen a lot of ML going on with people within their homes. ML with people within their homes. I can't use certain phrases on here. I got to be careful. So what am I trying to say by saying all of this? Well, part of me is saying center yourself and be calm within yourself, whatever you can do, whatever techniques you can use to do that, whether, like I said in the pick a number video the other day, and watch all messages 1, 2, and 3. I think they're all valid for everybody now. Don't just, if you want to pick one of them, but I would watch that whole video, because what can we do? There's not much we can do now, but we can build up our sanity and our emotional stability by immersing ourselves in something we enjoy. Are you an artistic person? Are you an exercise person? Are you a writing person? Do you like to cook? It's a great time. Stock up on some things and cook a bunch of different types of foods, something to maintain your sanity and all of this chaos surrounding us right now. Okay. That's what you can do for the short term. Center yourself. Don't worry so much. Be cautious, but don't let this ruin your life, right? But at the same time, and not to sound like a Debbie Downer, be prepared, because they don't see these over-the-top occurrences, these over-the-top events letting up anytime soon. I do not see them letting up anytime soon. And to be perfectly honest with you, I see more things coming, not just the CV, more things coming. Okay. Yes, it has to do with coins. Yes, it has to do with our money, but it also has to do with other things as well. Just prepare in any way you can, but don't sit around in fear or worrying all the time at the same time, Lift that burden. Don't burden yourself so much with the weight of the world. You can't carry the weight of the world. Yes, there is a destabilization. The King of Pentacles in many ways is very similar to the Emperor card, because Capricorn and Taurus can symbolize the Emperor, just like Aries can in certain ways as well. But I think it's more of an earth energy. Okay, so this is like a Pentacles, an Emperor, King of Pentacles archetype. Again, the destabilization of the world, the shaky foundations. In some ways, these foundations that we built were burdens to us all. In some ways, these foundations, they didn't work, and this is why they're being removed. What is the negative aspect of Capricorn? That's the sign that the United States is returning into on February 22nd, 2022. The birth of our nation was in Capricorn and Pluto when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Capricorn symbolizes the devil card. Or I like to say the Pan card. I think it's unfair that Capricorn's kind of got stuck with the devil, but archetypally what the devil imagery is taken from is Pan. Pan represents enjoyment, money, sex, having a good time, the ego, and the negative, greed, obsession with money, obsession with sex. Right? So if we have this reversed, so what are those things that were negative in this world all this time that are going to start to come to light as it goes into Capricorn? Now, there's good aspects of Capricorn. We're going to go to a return to the traditional way that our country started. And I don't want to get that mistaken with the traditional ways of how this country was built on slavery or racism. That's not what I mean. I mean the aspects that were good about it, right? What does returning to that 1776 energy mean? Taking out the, of course, the racism and the slavery. What does that mean? A return to a simpler way of life, a return to slowing things down, a return to community between others, right? So those are the foundations, the Capricorn energy that was this country was originally built upon, that we will be returning to, and other countries will as well. But I keep mentioning the United States, not because I'm an American, but because the United States is the superpower of the world, and in many ways will feel the fall the greatest because they are the biggest empire in modern history aside from Great Britain. And in a very dark energy, what Nazi Germany was trying to do was become an empire like that as well. So these foundations that many westernized countries particularly, and especially like the United States and Great Britain was built upon, are no longer working. And what foundations will these countries be returning to, that the countries once adapted that were positive, not the negative aspects, but the positive aspects? And what are the ugly parts of the foundations that we have today that we will be letting go of? What are the ugly parts? Living beyond your means. And I don't mean people who are struggling. That's not living beyond your means. It's like, I mean, in many ways, people who have a life built upon debt, a system that is built upon debt, a government that's built upon debt. These are the things that will start to fall away more and more and more. And then you'll see this upright, this Capricorn energy coming back upright, also King of Pentacles too, because that's Capricorn as well, stabilizing as it gets closer and closer to February 22nd, 2022, when the Capricorn will fully return into Pluto, when Capricorn will fully return into the planet of Pluto. I want to say that correctly. Okay, so what can we do in light of that? Prepare as much as you can. Yes, take things seriously, but remember, you can only do so much. You can only carry so much weight of the world on your shoulders. You can only do so much for you and your family, or you and your spouse, or you and your girlfriend, or you and your boyfriend. You can only do so much, and then you just have to let it go. And not making light of things, but just finding ways to bring back that energy of enjoyment despite what's going on around you. You know, today, this is a silly story, but I had an idea of, you know, next time I have to go outside, I've really been avoiding going outside, you know, because it's serious out there. And I happen to be in a section of one of the states that has the highest amounts in that particular state. I'm not in New York State, by the way, right now. And I thought of like a funny idea. I was like, well, you know, if I'm gonna wear the few masks that we have, I could draw like little art on the mask. You know, I could make it colorful to go with my outfit, and you know, so I can use the mask again. I can cover the mask with a scarf that matches my outfit. You know, to try to not make light of it, not make fun of it, but just to try to bring something I enjoy, which is like fashion, into something that's like a dark situation. It's making light in something that can be dark, right? It's not letting it get to you too much. It's trying to see something that you can do out of it that's like, oh, I enjoy doing this, you know, or especially if you're in a city and you're in close proximity to others, something you can do for somebody else, you know, of course, being safe while you're doing it, but trying to find something positive in all of it, something that makes you happy in all of it. You know, it makes me happy to think about drawing something pretty on a mask and coordinating my outfit together. You know, writing something, running back and forth on your balcony. There was a French guy who ran a marathon on his balcony because he loves exercising so much. And he was, you know, quarantined, or he was just, if he wasn't quarantined, he was just told to stay in like everybody else. It's those types of things, because quite honestly, I don't see an end happening soon at all to the tumultuous upheaval of this world right now. I see more things happening. I see a little break from this, and then I see more happening. And not just this virus, not just the monetary instability of the world, not just that. I see more. Okay. I might go more into detail with that. I'm going to think about it on my Patreon, and you guys can subscribe. I'm being careful on how much detail I go into on YouTube, because it's being very heavily paid attention to, a lot of people's videos now. So I'll look at your comments now, and let me just do some cards for advice right now for everybody. Let's just see what kind of advice we can get. Okay, so now is a time, the theme of the situation is to stay within the mind. It doesn't mean that the heart center is not important, the emotions are not important, but sometimes the emotions can become negative when we allow them to rule us. Fear, scarcity, worry, panic. How can we stabilize ourselves by keeping everything within the mind? Rationality, masculine energy, and the positive. What's the worst that could happen? What are the practical steps I can take? How can I do this and this and this today? And then the next day, figure out what I'm going to do the next day, and not worry too much down the line. Just focus on the here and the now, rational. Because the world is going through a state of karma, of upheaval, judgment reversed. The world, again, in upheaval, karma. Letting go of the illusions of what we thought the world was, what we needed, our paradigm, and accepting a new reality. Things will eventually get better, even though you may feel like you are surrounded by all sides. You may feel trapped, you may feel hopeless, you may feel frightened, you may feel fear of losses of a certain type of life, of people you fear losing. There will be joyfulness again. There will be a new beginning. People will become closer with each other during this time. It's time to become closer with those you care about during this time. Sadness will be experienced in this world, but we have to make sure that this message, you see what it says? We have to make sure that this message is clear to others, that we bring this message to others. Because a lot of what's going on in the collective right now, as well, as stirring up people who will live in a fear vibration, will live in a lower vibration, which will then stir up the committing of various crimes, desperation. So the more that we can live through this vibration of love, the more we can counteract that in the collective. Now, it doesn't mean to be stupid and just trust anybody you come across. It just means to try to lift your vibration as much as possible. Let me just read what the comments say. Well, I'm glad you guys are finding things to do and you're enjoying the time that, you have if you are home from work. For those of you who have to go to work, I hope that you stay healthy. And I hope this message helped everybody to get some insight into what's going on. And the reason why, again, to reiterate why I talked about the United States is because the United States is the great empire in the world right now. It was once Great Britain, and now it's the United States. It also is some other nations that are in the shadows with the United States that I cannot mention here on the public YouTube channel. I will go into that more on Patreon sometime. It's because the United States is the great empire right now. And when I say great empire, I don't mean great like I think we're so much better. I mean great like the big empire, like Rome, like Great Britain was. And so the energy in the collective of the United States is influencing other countries with the wars, with the upheaval, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The economy is influencing other countries on a global level. So the PLUTO return for the United States is very important on a global scale. It also is a country of immigrants where people from all over the world come to. So that's another aspect of it as well, how it affects people in the collective unconscious. Prepare for the worst and expect the best, Luann. Yes, that is true. Absolutely. I like your name on YouTube now. It's nice. But I'm going to end the video now. So the last message that I'm going to give to you, I randomly flipped to in my Sacred Earth Oracle book. Respond to somebody's words, but not the tone. When you have an uncomfortable feeling, respond with questions. Listen and gather information and be flexible before gaining the answer. Resist an attempt to erode your character. Counter an abrasive personality or experience by elevating your knowledge. Pull back your emotions and let the truth reveal itself. You see, this could be talking about an individual somebody's dealing with if they ask a question about a person, but as a collective level, that goes along with the King of Swords energy I was talking about earlier. Pull back, rational energy, observe, ask questions about something before jumping to conclusions. Don't allow the immediate response to be, not that the heart is bad, but sometimes the emotions can work against you. Like, don't make the emotion, the immediate reaction be in fear. Oh my God, where your heart center is all clamped up and closed and frightened. Sometimes we need to push that energy back up in the mind and rationality. Okay. In allowing this change and letting go of the past, in letting go of certainty and in questioning with the mind, you will allow space to open in your heart. So it's talking about the heart-mind balance, as I was saying earlier. Heart-mind balance. This is very of the mind because it's an air sign energy, archetypal energy of the King of Swords. It's also masculine because it's the King of Swords, not the Queen of Swords. So it's like, it's not that the heart's not important, but in times like these, sometimes it's important to remind ourselves logically, what can you practically do? What can you practically do right now? What can you not do? And let go of the things that you cannot do for now and just take things as they come. That's very rational, head-centered, intellectual-centered, left brain, masculine energy logic. Because when we get too caught up in the negative aspects of the heart center or the emotions, it clams up, we get scared, and we react out of fear. It doesn't mean don't use the heart. It just means maybe give that emotional body part of yourself a break for a little while. Sometimes when we experience friction in our lives, it can be used positively. Look at your position and stay informed by observing unexpected angles. So It's approaching something differently, looking at it differently. Instead of looking at something through the eyes of fear, looking at it through the eyes of, okay, so now what's the next step? Okay, I understand all of this. So now what am I going to do practically? So now what am I going to do in my life that I can control? What part of my life can I control, and what things can I not control? And how am I going to let those things I can't control go? So I guess that's what I have. We will go on a new journey. We will go on a new beginning. Maybe we're reuniting with people we haven't seen in a while, or we've been closer with them talking on the phone if many people are isolated in their places. And we will have a time when this ends, which I do feel is going to be temporary. We will have a time of pleasure seeking, but for right now, we're going to be in our rooms and our places alone. Yes, sometimes feeling imprisoned, but there will be better times ahead. Eventually, there will be a metamorphosis. As I said earlier, when this lifts, I don't see it lifting forever. The CV panic and everything going on with the CV, I do see it circling back around again. But I think it's not our only concern. There's a lot more going on, and that will continue to go on, other things that will occur leading up to the Pluto return on February 22nd, 2022. So prepare as much as you can, enjoy yourself in what way you can, and just look at things intellectually as to how can I control this? Can I control this part of it? Yes? Okay, so I'll do these step A, step B, step C. Can I control this part of it? No? Okay, I'm going to let that go. All right? So thank you guys for coming. That was so nice of you, Luann, to do that for your friend. You made soup and tea. That's really nice of you. And you guys are really sweet for coming and commenting and being supportive of each other. And thank you for coming, April. And yes, everything will be fine eventually. And thank you, everybody, for coming. So I will talk to you later. And I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. And I will be coming back on maybe tomorrow. Let's just say tomorrow so I do it, because if I say maybe, I won't do it. I will come back on tomorrow. I don't like to do them all the time, but I'm going to do one about the crown and the CV going around and how they're dealing with it and what they think about all of it. So the royals and the CV. All right. I will talk to you later. Bye.